It's strange, isn't it, how sometimes the most powerful acts of protection happen quietly, in dim hallways, with no cameras rolling and no grand speeches. How one small decision can ripple out and change the future of an entire family, maybe even the shape of a monarchy. And how the person pulling the strings might never even be thanked or known at all. In this case, the quiet guardian was none other than Princess Anne. And the person she chose to shield was the one who still clutches stuffed animals at bedtime, who still giggles when her father tries to dance in the kitchen. Young Princess Charlotte. The girl who, by blood alone, stands close to the very center of Britain's next royal chapter. But behind palace doors, something was stirring. Something that might have left a stain on Charlotte's emerging public story forever if Anne hadn't stepped in. A harmless family event, or was it? It all started off so simply. A typical soft-focus royal outing. There was an upcoming event designed, at least on the surface, to give Princess Charlotte just a gentle nudge further into public life. A sweet speech, a bit of applause, a memory to treasure, the sort of moment the Windsors have staged for generations to ease the young into royal duty. Charlotte was meant to stand near her parents, read a few lines prepared carefully for her, smile for the cameras. Nothing daunting. Nothing the public would suspect of being more than a charming photo op. But then small changes began to creep in. The invisible hands rearranged the stage. Princess Anne was the first to notice. Maybe because she's always been the royal family's unofficial lie detector. Maybe because she's lived long enough to recognize when the palace machine starts humming with something other than good intentions. At first, it was so minor that it seemed almost paranoid to question. Charlotte's note cards were swapped for new ones. The handwriting was neat, professional, but not familiar. Then the event seating chart was subtly adjusted. Charlotte would now stand just a bit farther from William and Catherine. A tiny gap, easily explained by better spacing for photographs, if anyone bothered to ask. Then came the lighting. Stage technicians were instructed to angle one of the key spotlights slightly differently, to cast sharper lines, deeper shadows. Again, completely justifiable for dramatic effect. Right. But Anne had seen this kind of soft sabotage before. Enough to know it rarely looked like sabotage at all. In the cloaked world of palace intrigue, it's almost never overt. It's always an accumulation of little things designed to unsettle, not to ruin, but to rattle. A stumble here, a nervous glance there, the brief catch of breath that becomes tomorrow's viral clip, royal child overwhelmed. That's all it takes. Ghosts of scandals passed. Anne's mind drifted backward. She remembered watching Catherine, then new to the family, stand rigid under lights that were inexplicably hot, sweat visibly dotting her upper lip during a crucial speech. The tabloids had feasted on those awkward images. Is Kate too fragile for royal spotlight? The headlines blared. No one outside the palace ever learned how small changes in lighting cues and last-minute script edits nearly derailed the young Duchess that night. Or how Anne had intervened quietly then, too, smoothing over what could have become a very public humiliation. Now history was trying to loop around again, and Anne was having none of it. Anne's private mission. She didn't storm into meetings. She didn't ring William. That would only create panic. Instead, she did what she'd done for decades, she wrote it down. Her diary, leather-bound and well-worn, was where Anne catalogued every whisper and half-finished sentence she caught in palace hallways. This doesn't feel accidental, she scribbled late one night. Little threads being pulled, as if someone wants to see what might unravel. She started asking quiet questions. Nothing that would send staffers running to their superiors, just gentle, pointed inquiries. Who adjusted the lighting plan? Why was Charlotte's original seating changed? Most gave nervous, bland answers. A few wouldn't meet her eye. And knew which staff belonged primarily to Queen Camilla's old household. That fact alone didn't condemn them. But patterns matter. And these subtle shifts in the event plan all seemed to trace back to one corner of the palace operations, the very cluster of aides most loyal to Camilla. Coincidence? Perhaps. But Anne was too seasoned to bet Charlotte's dignity on it. The night it nearly fell apart. The evening before the event, Anne stayed up late, reviewing copies of the event's technical scripts and staff notes. She found that Charlotte's cue cards, the small prompts meant to steady her through the speech, had been revised again, now containing slightly more complicated phrasing. Words that could tangle a young tongue, draw out a pause, invite a second's panic. All it would take was one slip. And right next to the stack of updated cards sat a new set of lighting instructions, signed off by someone and recognized from Camilla's camp. The spot that would highlight Charlotte was to be timed for precisely when she started speaking, not when she walked on stage. Meaning she'd stand for a heartbeat in dimmer light, searching for her cue, just long enough to look lost before the beam locked on her. And felt her stomach turn. She didn't believe Camilla herself would orchestrate something so petty, but palace ecosystems are intricate. Sometimes eager underlings tried to manage optics in misguided ways, thinking they were protecting one member of the family by subtly undermining another. And had seen it more than once. She snapped her diary shut, rose from her writing desk, and decided enough was enough. A confrontation in hushed tones. And didn't call for guards. Didn't alert the palace press office. She simply walked, alone, down the carpeted corridors to find the aide responsible. She laid the altered speech cards on the desk. "Is this really how you wish to be remembered?" she asked quietly. The aide sputtered. Denied. Blamed confusion with last-minute edits. And didn't press for an admission. She didn't need one. Her calm, unwavering stare said enough. After a long, tense silence, she gathered up every altered note, every revised instruction, and left the room without another word. Back in her quarters, she made calls to reassign key staff, reinstated the original plan from top to bottom, and ensured a trusted technician oversaw the final light adjustments. By dawn, the event was set to unfold exactly as it should have from the start. A flawless moment that almost wasn't. When Princess Charlotte took the stage later that day, she was radiant. Poised. Her voice, clear and sweet, carried over the crowd without a tremor. The cameras caught her confidence, her careful smile, her proud little curtsy at the end. Social media erupted with praise. Future Queen energy, fans gushed. It was everything the family had hoped for. Off to one side, and stood watching, arms folded. No one knew how close it had come to a very different scene, a nervous girl blinking under misplaced lights, hesitating over lines that had been made just slightly too tricky. No one knew that and had been the silent force holding the moment together. She didn't step forward for a photograph. Didn't insert herself into the glow of Charlotte's triumph. Instead, she returned to her rooms that evening and wrote one final line in her diary for the day. She stood unshaken. That's enough. The question that haunted her. Should she have told William? And turned that thought over again and again. William was fiercely protective of his children. Had he known, he would have stormed into staff offices, demanded answers, maybe even pushed it up to King Charles. The media would have caught wind. Headlines would have erupted, rift over Charlotte's big day, William confronts palace saboteurs. And where would that leave Charlotte? The memory of her shining moment forever tied to scandal, forever overshadowed by the idea that she'd only done well because her father bulldozed palace intrigues on her behalf. And wanted more for her niece. She wanted Charlotte to believe, purely, that she had earned every cheer on her own. So she kept it quiet. Not because William didn't deserve to know, but because sometimes protecting someone means trusting them to enjoy their moment unclouded. The power of silent protection. In the weeks that followed, a few aides found themselves quietly shuffled to new posts, some to far less influential roles. No dramatic firings, no official statements. That wasn't Anne's way. She handled it all with a surgeon's precision, a quiet rearrangement to make sure similar games couldn't be played again. Her brand of strength didn't crave spectacle. It existed in hushed rooms, in diaries tucked inside locked drawers, in gentle corrections that avoided humiliating anyone while firmly resetting the balance. Anne knew the monarchy didn't survive by accident. It survived because someone was always paying attention. Sometimes that vigilance came from the sovereign. Sometimes from strategists in dark suits. But more often than not, it came from people like and insiders who understood that a family's survival often depended on preventing small wounds from ever becoming public scars. So now, dear viewers, here's a question for you. Should more of these hidden palace maneuvers be brought into the open, Or does their secrecy preserve the dignity of the monarchy? Was Anne right to protect Charlotte's confidence at the cost of full transparency? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing your take, it keeps this community rich and buzzing. And of course, if you want more stories of silent power, tender guardianship, and those tense moments behind gilded curtains that never make the official memoirs, hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Because sometimes the truest royal battles are the ones the world never sees, but we'll make sure you still get to hear about them.